Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning to you on this freezing March 29th, albeit the sun is out, and that's always good news. It's a Tuesday, and that means Susan's joining us. Hi, Suze.
Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning. You want to feel old? I was looking at Twitter, and somebody posted something like, you know, back in the 60s, and we know it goes further back than that. Do you know back in the 60s, they actually had candy cigarettes for kids?
Yeah, I loved them.
Well, they tasted like crap. They weren't good candy, but you did like pretending you were smoking.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't even mind the way they tasted. They had that sort of chalky, sweet taste.
It was mostly chalk. They had that chalk taste is what they had. But so this person posts that, and you know, it just shows how, God, we're so old when they talk about things like being a child in the 60s. It's like ancient history.
I know. Well, but guess what? We're old.
I know, really, 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 really old. And I remember Mom saying to me maybe 20 years ago, it's so odd, but when you're old, you're the exact same person you were when you were young. And you feel exactly the same. You have the same person. And it's so true. That's why it's always so shocking.
Well, it's true if you're lucky. Wait a minute. It's true if you're lucky. Not all.
What do you mean?
Because not all people grow old and feel good and feel young, and their mind works the same way.
Oh, so, okay. All right. Okay.
That is an optimal. You are reporting is what you're reporting is true. It's also
aging optimally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so you feel, yeah. You just feel, and the only time you're taken up short is if you happen to see yourself in a mirror and thinking, who the hell is that old lady? But yeah. So anyway, it was so cute because everybody started responding to this tweet about making cigarettes into candy for children. And some guys say, know about them. I was a pack-a-day kid. Hooked on them at age 6. And then I went on to the hard stuff, like bubblegum cigars. I loved it.
Now there's some very clever stuff that you run across on
Twitter.
Well, all over. I mean, you know, here's my favorite from this morning. After sleeping on it and more contemplation this morning, my feelings about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock last night are that Clarence Thomas is on the Supreme Court ruling on cases involving an election that his wife has been trying to use her proximity to power to overturn.
Oh, a lot of people are doing that. There is somebody posted something that's saying, if you want, you know, a really incredible take, here's what I really think about Will Smith and the slap, and then you've got to read this. And it was just, you had to click on it. And I clicked on it, and it was about how the world is about to disintegrate because of climate change. So a lot of people have been saying, hey, guys, can we, but you know what I was thinking? It's not fair to hector people for a moment's respite. And this is, the slap is like a respite.
I didn't know, but you see, if what we get as respite is Will Smith?
Yeah,
toxic masculinity. No,
that is respite because it's something everybody can comfortably talk about, right? Because there it was. It's I just think I understand why people. It does allow you to talk about more serious things, but it's also just great gossip. It's the kind of stuff that people just love to talk about. I think the best thing I've seen on it, frankly, was written in our local paper by our columnist Tony Norman, who I think just nailed it. Should I share some of that with you?
Please.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to do the whole thing. Okay. In exchange for an act of performative violence that impressed no one, Will Smith turned what could have been the proudest evening of his professional life into a Hollywood version of a drive-by shooting. It will serve us right if #Oscar2Black suddenly starts trending. He's black. Just like every stupid macho act that ends in a killing, Smith's televised assault on Chris Rock was rooted in an outsized sense of his own humiliation because of a joke told at the expense of his wife. There was fearful acquiescence by the audience as it watched the spectacle, as one black man's implicit threat to another was shouted across the stage. "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." Then he goes on. What infuriated me more, and this is true, than the actual assault was Smith's rambling, self-serving Oscar acceptance speech, in which he talked non-ironically about being a vessel of love.
Yeah, I know.
And light. I know.
I had actually only just turned on the award, so I had missed the slap, and I was going,
well, yeah, I missed it too.
What the hell is this?
What? Yeah, I missed it too. Anyway, then he said, let me see. Oh, he goes on to say that it was an act of cowardice. He said, Will Smith would not have attacked, say, Dave Chappelle for the same joke. He would not have attacked The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, no.
Right, no, but it's true.
He'd hurt his hand.
Right, every reasonably fit rapper would have gotten a pass too. And white comedians have nothing to worry about. Mr. Smith would never have assaulted the late Don Rickles. No wonder how obnoxious he got. Slugging Billy Crystal or Steve Martin, inconceivable. A canceled comedian like Louis C.K. would have made alopecia funny enough to get canceled again, but Smith would have stayed in his seat. If Mr. Smith had slapped any member of the trio of female hosts for telling the same joke, he would have been handcuffed and possibly tasered to death long before returning to his seat.
I'm sorry for laughing about that. But
no, I know. No, I know. He just got this dead on. He says, Smith settled on Chris Rock as the focus of his ire because he's black, slightly built, and less likely to spoil his act of stupid machismo by slapping his ass down first. There's no cost to pay for clobbering an underweight black guy. Well, he goes on. I just think he totally. Oh, and then he says he's finished.
I think so too.
He says they should have given.
They're exhausting, those two. They both should have been finished a long time ago. But anyway.
No, okay. He says he says that they should have awarded Smith his trophy in a paper bag after the broadcast. At the very least, he should not be allowed to be an honorary presenter next year. Wait, hang on. And now he has a target on his back. Every sordid story and rumor formerly suppressed by the tabloids, and I've already seen this starting up, is coming out now.
Yeah, about them and their kids.
About them and about him and about, he's tried to be this, as Tony Norman says, he's been, creating this nice guy persona. And he says they're gonna come at him now, and the comedians are gonna come at him, and it will be relentless. And he finishes by saying this: I hope Mr. Smith's 5 minutes of awkward Oscar glory was worth becoming a human meme. He didn't protect his wife's honor. He threw away 3 decades of goodwill because he, a black man of privilege and unimaginable wealth, believed he could assault another wealthy black man and get away with it. Whether he apologizes or not, his life as the ebony Tom Hanks is pretty much over. Whoa. I think he got it.
I think he did too. That's ebony Tom Hanks. That's really good. Tony had so many good lines in there. It's ridiculous. I mean, he really nailed it. I don't know what's happening to my voice. I don't either. I was wondering if I had anything useful to say. I'd talk for a long time so that you could clear your throat.
It's not a matter of clearing it.
It's just
not a matter of it.
Yeah.
It's just grumbly. Where did that come from? Oh my God! I must have COVID. Sorry.
I am now, on that subject, I just want to report that I am now the only person in Green Bay that still dons a mask to go into a grocery store.
Yeah, I believe it.
I am rehearsing what I'm going to say to the first slob that, confronts me about it, because someone will. So I want to be ready for an exquisite retort that I can escape while they're still trying to figure out what it means.
Well, you could just tell him the truth, that I have a 99-year-old mother at home, jerk off, and I'm doing this to protect her.
Well, that's what I sort of settled on, because it's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. So you can just, say, oops, sorry, that was...
Yeah, but I mean, the truth is, folks, there could be any number of real reasons, because when my husband, may he rest in peace, was dying of cancer, you can believe that when we were out and about, we were always masked.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons to be masked, folks. They're all the same. You don't want to catch something, but there are a variety of reasons.
It's all about people, because we're so crazed and divided. People see it as actually signaling your politics.
Speaking of crazed and divided, did you see how the Indian tribe in Rapid City has now declared the hotel basically trespassing, and they can claim it because they're an abrogation of the treaty?
Wait. They're what?
They're in it. That hotel is sitting on their land.
Hotel?
Oh, you did not hear about. There's a big hotel in Rapid City, and
no, I don't know nothing about this.
Well, okay. So over the weekend, I believe there was a shooting there, an unfortunate incident, but it was by tribal members. The elderly woman, I guess mother of the owner, puts out on Facebook a nasty screed about how no more Native Americans are allowed in her hotel. They will not be served in the sports bar. They're forbidden on her property. Well, that immediately blows up. And the mayor is saying, well, excuse me, you can't do that, and that's not who we are here, and how dare you, and blah, 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 blah. But the tribe now has pointed out that they had to seek permission to build on their land and to do their business.
So the hotel is on
now they're just going, right, they're just going to, the hotel has closed, and I'm just pointing out the consequences of people just saying and doing whatever they want before they think for a second.
Yeah, going from 0 to ballistic in 2 seconds.
Gets you bitten in the ass. I'm just pointing out there's two very clear samples of this.
Yeah, there you go. My Lord.
But that one cracked me up when I read that this morning because, of course, I mean, of course they have to get permission to do business on, and I can't believe it took the tribe that long to point that out to them.
Hey, since that was where? South Dakota?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Rapid City, yeah. South Dakota.
Rapid City, South Dakota. Okay, so I've got something from I think it's nearby. Hang on here. I mean, since we're in that part of the world. Oh, where do I have that? Hang on, I'll get it. I have things in so many different places, I don't know where it is. Here it is.
She rifled through all of her little pieces of paper. Right?
No, I wasn't even doing paper. I was on the wrong. I have it.
You were on the wrong site. Yes, I got it.
Yeah, I have it not in my photos. I have it here on this. I have it. I've got things on all over the place. Mm-hmm. No, Nebraska. Okay, that's close. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a Republican legislator from Nebraska, and as Republican legislators are prone to do, they were having a heated debate over school funding, and they got hung up, of course, on bathrooms.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes. I mean, well, excuse me. You're talking about school where there were other places they could have gotten hung up on which books to burn.
Well, they could have.
Instead, they could have. Instead, they went the other way to bathrooms, and this guy actually said this: school children are dressing up as animals, cats, dogs,
I knew this
during the school day. They meow and they bark. And now schools are wanting to put litter boxes in the bathrooms for these children to use.
For children who identify as
dogs, as cats. How is that sanitary? That's Senator Bruce Bostelman showing what a frigging fool he is.
And meanwhile, superintendents all over the states have been sending out letters saying, this is just not true, guys.
Hello.
No one's showing up in fuzzies, and no one's, furries, and nobody is peeing in litter boxes.
Oh, my God. Oh, he went on to say, some child who identified as a cat literally defecated on the floor of a classroom. You can't make it up. But I wanted to go from that to a very provocative story.
Okay.
I saw. Okay.
My eyebrows are up and arched.
Okay, now I got to find it, though. Hang on. Oh, shit. Okay, I got it.
This is my fault, guys. I got her an iPad for her birthday.
I know. Okay, this is actually an opinion piece, and it was in the Washington Post by Megan McArdle. And I'm going into this conversation, and I saved it, Susan, for when you were here, because in the past I have shown my difficulties with the quick changes because of sexual identity issues and trans people
with gender identity issues,
all that stuff. And I'm mostly there, but I've admitted to being, at some point getting a little still queasy. And I have not, it is amazing how I don't think of myself as somebody who self-censors much. But I have been fearful of saying something about something that's been in the news quite a bit, because by saying it, I will appear to be on the wrong side. And
after with that disclaimer, go ahead, say it.
Okay, when I read this thing, I thought, thank God, somebody has, very eloquently said what I am stumbling around to say. And what this has to do is with the trans person in the country who the Republicans are using to make hay more and to get elected more than any other trans person. Do we know who that is? That would be
the swimmer. The swimmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
The swimmer.
Leah
Thomas. Leah Thomas. She swims for the women at Penn University.
Yeah, she came in 12th, by the way.
I know. Finally, she came in 12th. I know. Hang on here. I have had difficulty with her. And here is why. There is a difference, because she didn't transition. She identified as male up until about, 2 years ago? She went through puberty as a male. She got all of the physical pluses that boys get in puberty that girls do not. And I think we need to be a little more nuanced here. And this woman who wrote this jumps right on that same thing. And why women's sports were created in the first place. Why do women compete against women? Because there is an obvious, and we all acknowledge it, physical difference and an advantage to people who are in a male body. And women would never be able to win. So to allow women to win, and this doesn't work for anybody who would transition before puberty from male to female, that's not, they're okay. But I think this really is unfair. I really do. She has an unfair advantage over the competition by virtue of her biology. And it is so obvious. As a male swimmer, she ranked 462, number 462. As a female, she's number 1. And something isn't right about that. It isn't fair to all of the women, cis women, I guess, or trans women who transition before puberty that she is competing against. It's
okay, but that's fine. So Leah Thomas shouldn't be able to do it, but. Mm-hmm. Your whole argument is you're just throwing her out and saying, but everybody else who comes in under these rules, they can do it. So,
Yeah, you see how sticky this shit gets? Well, you see how sticky it gets, and it's just like LGBTQ, LMNOP, RSV, WXYZ.
No need to be disrespectful, dear.
No, I am being. This is what gets Republicans elected.
Well, that's true.
Most people, and that's important, because most people don't agree with this stuff.
Okay, but you're still running dangerously close to the narrative that a mediocre male swimmer chooses to become a girl so that he can go from number.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying that. line gets
That's
switched.
No, fine. But I have to speak my truth. People are so afraid of saying what they think. Can I quote from this article?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with you saying what you think, and I think this is a sticky case. Let me just say what I do think. I think that trans folks in these situations have to be aware that they are representing.
Well, I've been wondering if Leah Thomas should do the right thing.
Well, so what you are describing is a situation where the only way it works is that if someone in Leah's position says, look, I get it's not fair. I'm not going to compete because I did blah, 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 blah. And I do have an unfair advantage by virtue of who I was when I went through puberty.
Biology. Yeah.
I mean, or you could simply write a rule if you didn't transition until after your. Well,
that might be what has to be done. I'm just saying that makes some sense because to go out. Okay, let me read what this woman said. She's very clearly saying that Leah Thomas has broken no rules. She's playing by the rules.
No, she hasn't broken any rules. Right.
Yeah, she's played within the rules. And she goes on to say, indeed, and yet I've now written 2 columns about Thomas, she says, and it is striking how many people, almost all of them liberals, have spontaneously erupted when I told them what I was writing about. All made the same complaint. It's not fair. There's little question that Thomas has retained some of the many biological advantages conferred by male puberty, such as height, heart and lung capacity, and strength. But the obvious rejoinder is that, of course, biology isn't fair. It never was and never can be. Every woman in the pool at the NCAA finals won the genetic lottery. Most women simply can't swim that fast, no matter how hard they work. The stark fact of biological advantage is as true of the distinctions between elite women swimmers as it is of the divide between them and the rest of us. Katie Ledecky, the NCAA record holder, is simply more gifted than everyone who swam in the finals last Thursday, including Thomas, who was 9 seconds short of Ledecky's finish in 2017. So why does Leah Thomas's biology bother so many of us, while Ledecky's does not? They both have a biological advantage. Right? Okay.
Right. They both do. Well, it's just how they came by it. That's all.
Yes, right. The progressive answer that we're just trapped by convention, mired in outmoded definitions of gender. As society catches up with the emerging consensus, progressives say, people will shed their faulty intuitions and recognize that trans women obviously belong in the women's division. This is essentially the logic of comparing Thomas to Jackie Robinson breaking baseball's color barrier. Yet there's something wrong with that analogy. We aren't going to be educated out of our feeling that there are major differences between biological men and biological women. The male-female performance gap appears at puberty in most sports and quickly becomes so large that most cisgender women would never be able to compete at more elite levels if we were not segregated into our own leagues. And women's leagues exist so that men don't get all the glory. And this, in short, is the crux of difference between Thomas's advocates and her critics. Biology is unfair, one, and the other, yes. And women's sports exist to allay that unfairness. And both arguments have merit. Yet ponder them long enough and you eventually realize that only one of them supports the case its proponents are trying to make. Because taken to its logical conclusion that biology is unfair, but that doesn't give you the right to exclude better athletes from competition, is not a great argument for including Thomas in the women's division. It sounds more like an argument for abolishing women's sports in favor of one open league. We might argue biology is one reason sports are separate, but winning isn't the only purpose of sport. It teaches teamwork, self-discipline, important social values such as inclusion, all of which is true. And yet, if women's sports did not exist, would we now create them for the purpose of letting women experience the joys of all-female teams? Would we do it to allow trans athletes such as Thomas to compete as their authentic selves? Highly unlikely. Whatever various social purposes women's sports serve, their justification is simple: biology. Which is why Thomas's participation feels unfair, even though she's following the rules. It seems to violate the primary purpose of a woman's league. Her defenders have offered moving homilies to inclusion and warnings about the suffering of trans athletes who might be excluded. And all these points are worth considering. But they still haven't explained why we would ever organize sports around internal identity rather than external biology. She goes on to say, I'm still persuadable. We are all learning as we go. But of one thing I'm fairly certain. Unless and until someone answers this fundamental question, advocates of inclusion will never convince the public that pitting a trans athlete like Leah Thomas against a cisgender woman is anything like a fair fight. I'm just saying, you know.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I understand the argument, and which is why I said that that Leah Thomas has to understand that she is whether she chooses to or not, she is representing for trans people, and she needs to, not harm the cause.
Well, I don't. Obviously,
the other side of this argument is having this little intellectual argument about one case, and that one case being used in such a way that Texas puts forth, the sort of legislation that makes, dealing with a trans child as a parent child abuse, or treating a trans child abuse, such that people have to leave a state. I sort of don't want to engage in the conversation that allows that to go forward.
Susan, we're not going to stop the other side from doing what works for them. We would do the same thing. Both sides take the one, always cherry pick the one egregious example. And Republicans are better at doing it than anybody. But our side...
Well, that's because they make theirs up. Witness furries and litter boxes. Go ahead.
Our side constantly, I heard it, our side constantly allows us to be pulled into these... Republicans are... Their whole way of getting elected is talking about nonsense now, crazy stuff. But we are forever giving them this fodder, and I'm sorry, there are if people in our bubble go out and talk to other Americans, you will find that one of the reasons they end up voting for Republicans, even though they really don't like a lot of what they're about, is because they think we're crazy too.
Yeah, I get that.
that basic facts like there are men and there are women don't exist anymore. That, most people and good people just can't get that. They might eventually get the trans thing. They might. But it's going to take a long time. Meanwhile, Democrats are not going to be elected to national office or going to control state legislatures.
Okay,
and we're going to end up
Lynn,
as a fascistic country.
Well, that's fine, but if we take that argument to its logical conclusion, Democrats have to shut up. They have to not. They have to not be at the forefront of a lot of freedom. Of what individual freedom is really about, which is not about wearing a mask or not about buying a gun and owning as many as you want, but really about the essential truth of each of us to decide who we are and how we present ourselves to the world.
I understand. I understand.
I won't back off of that. I just won't.
Okay, fine. Well, then keep losing elections because we're going to. No, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, too. I completely understand.
Yeah,
Democrats have always paid the price for being out there pulling America forward. But America always does this huge backlash, which is why we mistakenly thought we'd already won the right to abortion. Well, look, turns out we hadn't. We always are congratulating ourselves on all the progress we make when we have yet to learn that you cannot legislate what people think. And we pay a big price for it. I'm not saying that. I don't know.
Yeah, progress is very hard, and it happens in fits and starts. But the right thing to do is never to just refuse to say the truth because it might hurt you.
I agree.
And I will also admit that my thoughts are informed by the fact that these are not, sort of out there ideas. This is real to me. I have friends who have had trans children. I know these people. So do you? So
I know people who have transitioned. This is not I understand it. But I'm saying when we don't do nuance on this, like Leah Thomas, this is where we could make people see that we haven't totally lost our cotton picking minds.
Well, I always will argue for nuance. And the law is based exactly on nuance.
Well, I'm telling you, if you were to ask most Americans today, is it fair? Is it fair that Leah Thomas gets to compete with those other women on the team? I think it would be 90% no.
Well, and listen, I agree. But my problem with the statement is that the rules as they are now are all or nothing.
I know.
And the proposed rule change is all or nothing.
Oh, God.
Here's what I think. I think each of us has to stop thinking that we are the most important thing in the world, because that is the top of the conversation today. From Will Smith to Leah Thomas to everybody just doing what they want to do because why not? We really do have to think about how, as we move through the world, the waves and the wake behind us are affecting the world. And they do. Even with the smallest of us. They do.
That is true. But I think it's important. I needed to say this because I don't like feeling muzzled by, ideology.
No, we mustn't be muzzled because we do need the nuance.
We do. And left to, the devices of both extremes on the right and the left, we would be living in friggin' crazyville. Just saying. Here's a big story.
Did you notice that Vladimir Putin's ex-wife sort of looks like Clarence Thomas's wife? What's her name?
Ginny.
I can't.
No.
Yeah.
Little Ginny. I don't want to wait. Here, I want to get this in. Things are starting to percolate with the January 6th.
I know.
Committee. I mean, I just want to point out, how shocked were you to learn this morning that it turns out that the phone logs from the White House that were sent over to the January 6th committee, the phone logs from that day, have, and I'm sorry to Rosemary Woods, is that her name?
Yeah, she's not around to blame.
Yeah, President Nixon's secretary, who was said to have created a few minutes of blank space in the tapes from his office. No, not to be outdone. There is a gap of almost 8 hours. 8 hours. Exactly the time that the insurrection was occurring and the immediate aftermath, where there is no record of the president at the time having been on the telephone ever. And yet we know he was, because how many
several people reported speaking to him, right?
That day. We know that they were talking to him. None of that exists. Now, what does that do? That is called a cover-up. That is what got Nixon.
Yep.
It's often not the crime. It's the cover-up. And it turns out that, like every crook, Trump was probably using disposable burner phones because he knew he was committing a crime.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Doesn't that make you feel good that your president is in his quest? It just sounds so stupid that he's using disposable burner phones.
Yeah, why would that be? But Hillary's emails. Okay.
Well, another one of my favorite editorial cartoons is the crowd of elephants surrounding Trump protectively as they question Ketanji Jackson about her being soft on crime.
Right. That's a great cartoon. It is a great cartoon. God almighty. So, the other good thing was that this federal judge, in regard to the guy who wrote the handbook for how to do the insurrection, which would be, by the way, he was a law clerk to Clarence Thomas, John Eastman.
Yeah.
John Eastman, the guy who wrote here's what we do, here's what Pence has to do, this is no problem, here's what we're going to do. That guy worked for Clarence Thomas as the plot thickens. And so a federal judge ruled.
And it makes you wonder how long the conspiracy has been, how many years in the making.
Oh, man. how Eastman was trying to keep his records from the January 6th committee. And the judge in his case said, looks to me, I guess he says there's 11 things here that quite clearly belong at the committee and quite clearly show Mr. Eastman and the president engaging in criminal conduct. Well, specifically said, he ruled that Trump and a lawyer, that's Eastman, who had advised him on how to overturn the election, most likely had committed felonies, including obstructing the work of Congress and conspiring to defraud the United States of America. Oh. Yep.
I'm hopeful. I'm actually hopeful.
Merrick Garland. Wonder what's holding him back. Boy, I hope at some point he
just unleashes a whole bunch of things. But
yeah, I hope. I know I've been reading to you a lot, but I read something else that is so good. What? And it's little. This was in this issue of The Week, and it's the edit. Jesus, it's the editor's letter, and these are often excellent. And it's about Ukraine, which we have not talked about. So it starts talking about how, incredibly wonderful these countries surrounding Ukraine have been in taking in so many Ukrainians, and goes on. It says it offers a spark of hope for humanity. And then it says that 1 in 4 Ukrainians have already been uprooted, 10 million so far. And such a flood has not been seen since the 1940s in Europe, since Hitler. And this is what I want to read. Much has been made of the gulf between the welcome for Ukrainians and the begrudging acceptance Europe gave to Syrians and Afghans in 2015. Part of that difference is surely racism. Just ask the African students in Ukraine recently stopped at the Polish border. But part of it reflects the swiftness of the crisis and the commonality of a Russian threat now faced by all Europeans. So I want to first say that why I like this is, again, there's nuance. Yes, it says there is racism afoot in the difference. But on the other hand, Poles and Hungarians and Germans can so clearly identify with the threat of Russia to themselves that they understandably feel differently, intuitively differently to the people running from what they themselves are afraid they will run from next. I'm just
right, because
okay?
they're protection from them. So yes.
So it goes on to say the Poles are struggling to absorb all these people, but they're doing their best, setting up schools, pitching in to clothe the arrivals, donating diapers. Americans like to think we would do the same for neighbors in need.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, here in practice, though, we have not. And I saw another great cartoon. It was a Guatemalan and his wife and children heading toward the United States. And he says to his wife, remember, tell them we're Ukrainians.
Right.
Right. And this is where this person goes, not there, but goes to when our neighbor Haiti had a catastrophic earthquake in 2010 that killed 300,000 people, far more than have died in Ukraine, and forced hundreds of thousands to seek shelter abroad. The United States gave temporary protected status to just 60,000 people. And President Trump sent thousands of them back to what was still a shattered and dangerous land ruled by criminal gangs. Hundreds of thousands more Haitian families have trekked across Latin America trying to reach the United States. Many attacked and raped along the way, only to be turned back at the Mexican-U.S. border. Remember those horrific pictures of Haitians being, whipped by men, our guys on horseback, as they tried to come out of the... Okay. We call them economic migrants, not refugees. But the distinction is academic. In any case, the Biden administration accepted just 11,000 refugees last year, the same amount as under Trump.
Right.
And far less than the previous average of 75,000. Would we treat fleeing Canadians better? And if so, what does that say about us? I think the writer is assuming that when she asked, would we treat fleeing Canadians better, everybody in their head said, yeah.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's why everybody, it's why all the white folks fly in and just overstay their tourist visas. Because no one cares.
Right. That's right. Oh, God.
Of course, they aren't doing that now. Now the Ukrainians are now having trouble getting tourist visas.
Dear Lord, we are a cruel, cruel, cruel people. No,
we are. Our country's motto changed a long time ago to "I've got mine, fuck you."
That's right. It's pretty much that's the America I know. I remember the first time I saw that bumper sticker. It was ages ago, but it was "He who dies with the most
wins."
Always wins. Yeah, most money, most what. I remember thinking, who would put that on? And I mean, advertise to the world.
What a jerk you are.
What a soulless, despicable human being you are. My God. Hey, I want to say this about Biden's gas. I loved it.
Yeah. He just said what everybody was thinking. I don't have a problem. What
everybody wished and was thinking. And I love that he hasn't apologized for it.
No, he doubled down. He said, I meant it. I'm outraged.
I meant it. Yeah. Yeah, fine. God. Okay, here's something that made me feel good. This is also from the week. They do these things where they find nice stories that have happened in other places. And this is such a wonderful thing.
Is it in our solar system?
No. It's actually in this country. I mean, but little pieces. This one's from California, from Healdsburg, wherever that is, California. And what happened is the elementary school students there, whoever had this idea, God bless them, created a hotline. And they called it Pep Talk. And they advertised it in the community. They put up signs on, telephone poles that if you were feeling down, because they knew a lot of people were, that they should call the hotline. And the children of West Side School had recorded little encouraging messages from their hearts. And so if you call the line, you hear a child's voice saying something, and here the saying something like, "Go get your wallet and spend it on ice cream and shoes."
That was a little girl.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? God.
She's already got a shoe thing.
And here's another one. "Go jump on a trampoline." And another, "Be grateful for yourself." So as young as kindergartners recorded these things, kindergarten up to 5th grade. And they have them rotating, and you call in and you get a little pick-me-up. And it caught on so much that it's hard to get past the busy signal now. And other school districts have picked up the idea. It's a great idea. Wonderful idea. And I just wanted to say, okay, now what?
Well, children do make you smile when they don't, when they are.
Yeah, right. Well, when they're not driving you nuts, they are just the most wondrous things. However, I do have something left over from yesterday. Susan, I came upon this on Twitter, and it's a little blurb. I'm going to read it to you. It's a blurb from a newspaper, and it's so unbelievably ridiculous that I said, I need to know more about this. And then someone sent me the more. Here it is. The headline is "Sex Slave Woman Wanted for Burglary." Here's the story. A woman who had 5 pit bull puppies cloned in South Korea is wanted in Tennessee on burglary charges. Joyce McKinney, 58, was accused of telling a 15-year-old boy to burgle a house to raise cash to buy a false leg for a horse. She fled Britain. Are you following this?
Sure.
She fled Britain in 1977 to avoid a trial for allegedly abducting a Mormon missionary and making him her sex slave. Okay, so I said, what? I mean, this is the kind of thing where, we start with cloned pit bull puppies from South Korea, then a prosthetic leg for a horse, which resulted in a burglary, and then a sex slave in the UK, blah, blah, blah. I thought, you can't, that was 3 sentences. You can't do that. And I said, that's like a movie, the story here. It's got to be a movie. Well, in fact, it was.
Yeah.
And this little blurb is 30 years old, okay? Because I was saying the math didn't work out. They said she was 58 and she fled Britain in 77 to avoid the trial for abducting the missionary. So she would have been 16 then. It made no sense.
Right.
So it was, okay. So here's what Ed sent me. And this is a 2011 article from the New York Times. Turns out this great documentarian, Errol Morris.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Right. Thin Blue Line.
He did a documentary about her. He heard about her and he had the same reaction anyone would have, like, what the hell? And he did a documentary. It's called Tabloid. And she apparently went to every screening, everywhere she could find it, and disrupted it. She would scream, "That's not true! That's not true!" while the film was going on. She'd scream, "I'm Joyce McKinney. That is not true. She's totally bonkers. Anyway, so it has been made into a movie, although it wouldn't have, I don't think, it might have the pit bulls and the prosthetic horse leg. I don't know. But mostly it is about the sex slave thing, which even he acknowledges is it's unclear whether the Mormon missionary was enjoying himself or not. The Mormon missionary refused to cooperate with the documentary, but his church was adamant in closing him down and in getting this out of the news. So anyway, what he said about the story is, it's a ridiculous story, but people are wrong if they think the profound and ridiculous are incompatible. So he thinks it's marvelous. So look that up if you want to know more about. She's a babe too. I see a picture over here. Joyce McKinney, who, I guess she abducted the Mormon here and brought him to. I don't know. I don't know. But the documentary is called Tabloid. Okay. What do you want? Okay. So there was that. All right. Hey, Sue, thanks a lot. Okay. Bye. 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 Boy, our voices. I don't know what's wrong with mine. Anyway, guys, thank you. And I'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.